Hello, everyone. This is Michaela from Joy Inc., and you're listening to the End All the Things podcast. As a life coach and facilitator, I work with individuals and groups to empower their best selves to shine to the betterment of all involved. My goal is always to bring you closer to trusting the voice inside of you that is authentically yours. My job here is no different. In my journey through life, I continue to meet people who use their authenticity, their gifts, to grow, change, and serve through professional and personal endeavors. These people and their stories become my gift to you, for I cannot keep a good thing to myself, and I believe that they may inspire a part of your story to evolve. Today's guest, my friends, is Lisa Sanderson. She is Vice President of Marketing and Strategy at Gleicher Manufacturing. This is a family business, a third-generation business that has continued to evolve over time. And she is now actively working in this space for operations and change management and sustainability with her husband and her dad. If you know anything about my story, you're going to hear a lot of similarities in our experiences and a lot of differences in our experiences. But what you'll find in this conversation is that change and evolution are necessary and need to be respected and honored and preserved. So let's find out more about Lisa and all the things. All right, we are here today with the incredible Lisa Sanderson. And as always, the purpose of this podcast is to look at how people grow, change, and serve, because I believe in giving that away, right? So Lisa, today you bring a wealth of information, experience, and dynamic changes throughout your life. But you and I have a lot of things in common, right? So let's start with that connection. And I'm going to call it out. It's women in family-run businesses, in manufacturing, in today's day and age. Take it away, Lisa. Tell us about you and your legacy through the family business.
Well, thank you for having me. And
Yeah.
I have to start by saying I never, ever thought I'd be in my family's business. I think you feel the same way. It wasn't going to happen. I actually got back into it because my boyfriend at the time started working for my father and ended up being my husband, and it just happens.
That's awesome.
On and off through the years, I've tried to help with them. In the last couple of years, it does seem that I've been involved more often. And it's an interesting dynamic, but it's a difficult. People ask me what's the hardest part about working with my husband. And I actually say that the hardest part is that my dad's his boss. And so when he comes home and complains about his boss, he's really complaining about my dad. And that makes me, there's nothing I can do about it. I'm always wondering, well, how can I fix it? And I can't. But it's just a different dynamic because you feel guilty about it a little bit because it's your fault. Not really, but
Right. But it's that complication. And I'm so grateful that you shared so vulnerably, because yes, same to all of that on so many levels. I started in my family business in my 30s with my husband, with my sister, with my dad, with my grandpa, with, extended family. Like, it's just this huge network of complication. And no matter what the roles were or what the dynamic was, any complaint, or not even complaint, but bickering, frustration, or just generally, like, people are irritated with their jobs. And it feels so personal, right? Like, I felt like I had to own that on behalf of all of these people that I love and worked with and wanted to still have Thanksgiving dinner with, right?
Yeah, ours is a little bit different because it's not as much extended family. My brother decided a long time ago also he wasn't going to be involved and has never been involved.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just really my dad and my grandfather before, but my grandfather passed away when I was in high school. So it's been a while.
Mm-hmm.
My grandmother also a little bit, everybody's always talking about my father and my grandfather, but I really have to push the fact that they could not have done that without my grandmother and my mother also working there and doing what they did.
Yeah.
And as a woman,
It's a
that's
whole,
important to me. Yeah,
it's a
it's
family
important.
business, right?
Yeah. But
So how do you make it work?
the
What's
thing
your
that's
trick?
interesting to me is that, not wanting to do it, but once something like this is handed to you, so the point of that is it's really Doug in mine now, my husband Doug. And I my father's still around, but we are in the last couple of years, that's kind of what changed, is that we've empowered ourselves to be like, no, these are the changes we're making. We don't really need permission. We're going to do what we need to do. And my vision is to change it from a family business to a business that is run by a family. And I don't think it's ever really been that way, just because nobody had the background necessary for that.
Right. So there's so many questions and things I want to bring up here. Okay. Can you tell us the difference? Because I think I know this based on our experience with my family business. What's the difference between a family business and a business that is run by the family? Or I don't know if that's
Yeah.
the exact language you use.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, it's valid. So my grandfather started the business, and I didn't really have any experience. I mean, my father's a mechanical engineer, which is why we're so successful as what we do, because my father had the knowledge to do what we, make the machines and do what we need to do.
Right.
My husband calls himself a political science engineer because he has a political science background. And now has had to learn the engineering portion of it. My background is business. I have an undergraduate and a graduate degree in business. I've worked for larger companies, so I know what kind of is supposed to happen,
Right.
or what the big world looks like. I would say professionalism, I don't really like to use that word, because it's not like we're not professional. It's
Mhm.
just, it's different when you're only thinking about it yourself, and you're thinking about how you want to look at things, as opposed to how the world wants to look at things. And I think in the past, it was really simple to not worry about your HR strategies, or not
Right.
worry about budgeting, or not worry, because you're closely held. Nobody else needs to see the books. Everything's great. You can do whatever you want. But in this day and age, you can't really do that, because you have to make sure your HR stuff is in line. You have to make sure everybody's being treated properly. You have to make sure your managers are talking to their employees properly. And so for me, putting policies and procedures in place is really the big difference,
Mhm.
right? It's not just winging it. It's not just doing it the way we've always done it, or making things fit for us. It's making things go the way that they should be going. And change is hard. So that's
Oh
like
gosh.
biggest thing.
I was just again, so many things to think here. But one just like little note to think is I found myself saying when we're approaching 100 years, our
Wow.
family business, right? And when I found people say, well, that's just how we do it. That's the way we've always done it. That to me was the first big, beautiful red flag saying, ooh, this is a process that should be evaluated. What have you found in that evaluation process, right? Because it sounds like that's what you're doing. Okay, well, that's not working. How do we upgrade it?
Right.
And
Yeah.
how, to your next comment about change, how does that work with your team, right? Because we have people that have worked decades for us, or and wrote the process. And how do you handle both, right? Because we want to pull the people, the process, and the whole company, profit included, forward. But at the same time, we have to manage that change with the human element, right? How do you do that?
Well, I mean, I think the change is the hardest part. I mean, the policies and procedures, I know what we have to do. I know that we need to formalize some things. I know that, just reviews, like we put reviews into place. We've never really had those before. Bonuses were just kind of based on, how well
Time
we
and
thought,
attention.
what,
Yeah.
right. So we want to make that a little more structured. And the change is hard. I think you have to get buy-in from upper people on the change. And like you said, we've had people that have been there, 30 plus years. We recently, last year, someone left who had been with us 38 years. And
Wow.
knowledge, and we're just starting to realize the knowledge that went with that. So to me,
Mhm.
what's really important is making sure we have the processes down, because it's a transfer of information, right? I mean, you don't want to lose the knowledge that someone has who's
Mhm.
been with you for 35 years.
It's
But
totally tribal, right?
right.
Like it's a tribal knowledge, but
Yeah.
it's so critical, right? And if we don't take the time, it's like a stitch in time saves nine, right? Like if you
Yeah.
don't
And
do
that's
a little,
but even convincing them to let you do that is difficult, correct?
almost
So,
almost impossible, not totally
right.
impossible. How do you do it then? What's the trick to get in to get them to buy in?
Right. Well, I've actually tried to figure out even how to do it with my father. And what I've decided is just videotaping him. My marketing company that we're working with, they're like, we'll make a video. And I'm like, no, I'm going to sit down with my dad. I'm going to put my phone on and I'm going to say, tell me the story, because I don't really even know the full story and it's going to get lost and I don't want it lost. And every machine, the same
Awesome.
thing. Why did you buy this machine? What have you done to it? What's the best way to take care of it? Those type of things, really getting it documented. And I think part of it is letting the people know that their knowledge is so valuable that that's why we want to keep it. And that this company that they've helped build is so important and valuable to us that we don't want it to go away. We don't want to, we've been lucky. And I think that, not lucky, but there has been times when we've been lucky
There's luck involved, right?
and we have to change our mentality that it's not it we have to actually be more proactive about doing some things. And so, hiring new blood in, that's hard as well, because
Yeah.
really hard especially at an upper level, but how to manage it. And it's just talking to people, and Doug's really good at it. He's been talking to everyone, like, what do you want to do? What do you see? How can we make this work? And letting people know. And the biggest thing for us is the follow through. So we've been announcing all these initiatives and all these things we want to do. And then if you don't follow through on it, eventually people are like, well, whatever. We're just keeping it the
Here they
way it
go
is.
again. All that
But we've
lip
been
service.
really, yeah, we've been
Yeah.
really, really trying to follow through. And so that's, difficult as well. So that's changed for me and Doug, who aren't the best at that. So that's something that we've been focusing on. But change is hard. I think it's letting people know that there's going to be change to make everybody better, everything better for everyone, and not change. Like, we're not trying to document how you do your job so I can replace you. We're
Right.
documenting how to do your job because we want to memorialize what you know how to do. And so that your legacy will live on as well when you retire or you decide. So that's how we're kind of managing
Well,
it.
and it's so interesting, right? Because I have so many pictures in my head of our employees who are that person who literally wrote the book 30
Mm-hmm.
years ago, 40 years ago, or built the machine, or created the process. And it is hard because in today's world where there's this feeling of replaceability, the beauty of a family business is that knowing and that culture that can support that person and adjust and be flexible, but at the same time getting everyone on board to become a more professionally run. And I say that, again, with respect to the fact that yes, we are professional, but there's a
Right.
different level or different version of that feels different.
Mm-hmm.
So when we look at those people, people might be thinking we're talking about our employees, but you said your dad is one of the hardest to compel. And I want to speak, from my experience, same, right? And it's not because my dad is, disagreeable or against things, change or whatever, but things were a different kind of simple years ago, 70 years ago, when your family started, and there wasn't the requirement of understanding all these different silos and buckets of information, and getting them to buy in can be very, very difficult, right?
Yeah. And I mean that
But
we're
it's
sorry.
not to replace them. So, right, because we talked about this, we want our dads to go out and find joy and to enjoy their life and to really dive into the fruits of the legacy that they've created. And I think we've done a pretty good job of supporting my dad in finding his direction. Where are you on that journey? And is it something that he knows is time and he's resisting? And if this is too personal for dad, we can step aside to another question. But I think all of us can appreciate that there's that one person that we love so much and we need to put a boundary or a change management in place with. And we don't know how to do it because it's so
Yeah,
big. Do you
that's,
have any wisdom for that?
I wish I had more wisdom. I really do. I mean, I think it's based on people's personality as well.
Mhm.
Like, um, it's a very difficult line because you don't want to say, oh, you've been doing it wrong for the last 50
Mhm.
years. You want to say you did what you did and you thought was right, and now it's time for us to come in and make some changes. It's
Mhm.
hard when someone like my dad wants to micromanage things and wants to get into the weeds, and I need to get him out of the weeds
Because he's
because
done that for 50 years, right?
exactly.
That's what
Or
he knows.
even our computer systems, it's always been unique to exactly how we want it, instead of saying, wait a minute, maybe we should try to fix our peg to go into that square hole
Mhm.
instead of fixing the hole, if that makes
Mhm.
sense.
Yep.
um we are a job shop, and so we don't just run. It's very hard to do processes, and because yes, a machine runs the same way but not really.
But
And
everything is different every time.
exactly. And the thing that my dad brought to this whole thing is the engineering part of it, right? So maybe the business part he always managed and ran, his mom did it
Mhm.
first, whatever. And that maybe wasn't as strong a suit for him. But what I wanted him to do is leave a legacy on the factory floor. I want like I said, he custom built all those machines. We can do things other people can't because my dad figured out how to do it, and now my
Yeah.
husband figured out how to do it, and or our
Same
employees
also.
back figured out how to
Mhm.
do it. So that's the legacy thing. I mean, like I said, I was speaking to somebody recently, and they said to me, you've got to like pump them up almost. And it's not even pumping them up, it's just the truth. It's not we're
Mhm.
trying to make you obsolete, we're trying to gather your knowledge so your legacy can continue. Because when you can't come my dad's 83 years old, when you can't come to work every day um or answer a question,
Right. Then
we
what?
need to have that knowledge somewhere. So yeah, I think it is difficult, and that's the hardest part when this has been their baby their whole life. I mean, my family's a bunch of entrepreneurs, so I don't really my friends are actually talking about retiring. I never even thought, we don't think that way. We've never
Mhm.
have. I mean, my
Just
grandfather
what's
worked
next and what's
equipment.
next.
Exactly. So I think that's, we're thinking about retiring. We're thinking about how to, our exit strategy in a
Mhm.
long time from now, but still,
Well,
it's,
so as I listen to you, I hear in the approach to how you look at management and operations and processes, I see a lot of evolved thinking. And I know that you've been through lots of education and lots of schooling, but you also have a coaching background, right?
yeah.
And I'm hearing this very business meets coachy mindset. Can you tell us about, the journey to become a coach, what that has given you here as you return to the family business?
Yeah. I mean, so I say I still am trying to figure out what I want to do when I grow up, because I'm not
Same.
100% sure. But oh, sorry, it's my chair. I think so. What happened was, my background, as I said, was in business. I was in product management, consumer packaged goods, um, after I graduated from grad school, and then I was looking for a new job when I got pregnant. And I never in a million years thought, I always planned to keep working, but because of the timing, I stopped. And I was very, very involved when my kids were little in everything and anything. And I helped start a day camp at nursery school and everything. Um, at one point, I decided that I needed to figure out what I was going to do next when my kids were a little older. And so I went and became a health coach. I was really interested in some changes that I had made. It made me feel better about myself. I really wanted to help other people with that.
Hey, hey there, amazing listeners of And All the Things. Thank you for being on this journey with me. The fact that you're still here, I have to assume this podcast has sparked your curiosity, encouraging you to think of life beyond your current boundaries. Now it's time to take that energy and channel it into a transformative journey where boundless joy awaits. Introducing the Course for Joy, brought to you by Joy Enterprises and me, Michaela, your joy coach. Life gets busy, I get it, but self-care matters and should not take a back seat. That is why we've crafted a 4-week self-guided adventure to seamlessly fit into your routine. In just 15 minutes, a few times each week, our enlightening video lessons and engaging workbooks will guide you through self-discovery and bring you closer to growth. As a special bonus, when you enroll in the Course for Joy, you'll receive an exclusive 50-minute live coaching session. We'll celebrate your progress and create a roadmap for your journey ahead. Are you ready to paint your life with vibrant joy and purpose? Visit myjoycoach.com/course to learn more about the transformative Course for Joy. Let's amplify your joy and ignite your purpose together. Stay tuned for more inspiration and insights right here on And All the Things.
I realized that making those kind of changes can impact the way you feel about yourself, the way you look and feel. And so I started doing that. I actually ended up writing a book about, it's called If I Could Just Cook in My Car, A Busy Mom's Guide to Feeding Her Family. I mean, it's a simple book. I wrote it. I actually ended up starting writing it because my friend really wanted to write a book. So we took a book writing class together and it helped me.
Cool.
We were talking about big. I would never have it would never be the product that it is without big. I met some really great people that edited it for me, that formatted it for me, that proofed it for me. It was an experience.
That's so
And
cool.
then after I wrote that, I really thought health coaching was it. And I ended up somebody hired me to help them start a new store in my town, which was a cooking store type of thing. It was very cool. And that kind of got me off track a little. And when I started thinking about I love coaching, but maybe the business coaching is better for me. There's a lot of things about health coaching that are hard. My daughter's currently getting her master's in nutrition and will become a registered dietitian. And there are a lot of things that she can do that I can't. And people want those things. So I had some struggle with scope of practice, which is why I've moved away a little bit. Not that I'll never go back because I keep learning on that too. But I learned that's where and then I started business coaching because I was like, well, I think I like business coaching. And I did that for a while. And then it became, well, if I can coach other people, why can't I coach ourselves? And it's not that easy when it's people that, it's kind of, so it took a little while and it took some outside coaching to really get us to where we are. So between the timing of some things and the outside coaching that we've had, but because I know coaching, I can build on it as opposed to just being coached type of thing. If that
Absolutely.
makes sense.
And I think all coaches need coaches, right? Like we all need to have accountability. We need to have perspective and support.
Right.
And what I found, I started working with coaches in my time at the family business, because what I found for me was it was very isolating, right? I didn't want to go home and complain about my boss because I'm complaining
Right.
to another subordinate. And it was just so isolating. So when I started working with a coach, I was able to say, I'm mad at this, I don't like that, without judgment, without frustration. But it gave me the language and the confidence to go in and say, okay, you might not like this, but I have this idea, I have this observance, I have this thing or observation, excuse me. Let's talk about it, right? And I didn't know how much I needed it at the time until I was like, wow, this is so much better, right? So as you go through this, right, we've talked a little bit about your dad and all of that. I also worked with my husband, and I think where we were, the season we were in and the season the business was in, it was tough. We had a lot of tough times, and we've learned, we've grown, all the great things, but it was hard, and it was sad, and it was, again, isolating. But you and Doug do it. You and Doug seem to
Yeah,
do it, at least
yeah,
in a good direction. Can you tell
yeah.
us what some of the conflicts are or were, and how do you make it work? Because that is a testament to probably communication and clarity and probably some confusion in between.
Um, yeah. So I have to give a lot of credit to Doug for that. I think you have to realize that even though we always haven't worked together, air quotes, in
Mm-hmm.
like side by side, I've been listening to this for 28, 30, 31 years,
Right,
So
because he's been in it the
technically,
whole time where you've
right.
been on the
Yeah. And
headset.
so
Okay.
we've talked about things, I've given him advice, and it never really happened. Recently, like in the season that we're in right now, he kind of sees us as a partnership. And I've also changed myself as well. So sometimes it'll take Doug a while to, if I want to make a change, it'll take him a while to get there. But he does get there, and he gets there on his own. And instead of, I had to change my thinking of, I want credit, I want the pat on the back that it was my idea, and just go with, okay, it's happened. He's made the change. He didn't do it the way I would have done it, but let's see what we can do now. The reason I give him credit is he's very kind to me about the fact about my schedule. I don't have a strict schedule. I try to all the time, but like, for example, today after we're done, I was going into work, and then my mother calls and needs a ride to the doctor. So that's why I work at my family's business, because of that flexibility. If my mom calls, if my kids happen to call, whatever the case may be,
Yep.
I can prioritize that. Um,
Yeah.
it works out for me. So that's what I think helps a lot. I do want to be more consistent there. I think it's important to set a good example. But because of the things I'm doing, my mother, when she worked there, would be in and out, but she was doing different things than I am. So I'm working with people, and I like collaborating. I really do. So, I like being in there and having meetings and talking to people. So
That's great. And I think it's so important to just say, it sounds like you have an agreement. This is the agreement. I will do XYZ. I will take this family, the demands of the moment as my priority. If you, Doug, company, take the company as the priority. I will do
right.
my job and I will do my projects, but it might look different. And that was something I had to adjust to, because one of the compelling factors for me to go into the business was the flexibility. I had a child that needed me in a
Yeah.
very particular way and still does. Flexibility is really important. Um, but it also comes with that cost of, like, I feel guilty, right? Or something, I feel something awkward about this. The
Right.
more it's communicated and said, this is what it is, this is what it looks like, I'll know I'm doing a good job if this is XYZ. So I think that it's a beautiful thing that you guys have this arrangement. But so in all those hats that you wear, what do you do in your free time? I know you're really into nature and skiing.
Yeah.
What does your leisure time or fun time look like?
Well, I do, most of the time, my own time is like being active and exercising. I've currently like been playing pickleball, which I know everybody plays pickleball now, but I really enjoy it. And so I've been playing pickleball, and spending time with my dogs, or going, spending time with friends. Like, that's really important to me, make time. And most of my friends still don't work. So it's, trying to make time for that. But
Different.
yeah, it's all of that's important, I think. And sitting at my desk and going through papers, and I'm also on the boards of our condominiums. I'm the president of our condominium board in Colorado. And so that's more work than you would think it is. So,
Yeah.
it ranges boards. So, but I like that stuff, and I like working with people and being involved. So I'm also looking into areas where I can volunteer more and make a bigger impact. So those things.
What kind of impact would you like to make? Meaning, thinking animals, nature, activism. What kind of volunteering inspires you?
What type of things? Well, one of the big initiatives that I'm actually trying to meld what something I'm interested in with the business is sustainability. And because I look at our dumpsters and it kind of makes me upset. I'm very big on, the environment and trying to do the best I can. I know none of us are perfect, and it's overwhelming, but I do the best I can. And when I see that stuff, I'm like, there has to be a better use of it, or a better way to dispose of it. And so I'm trying to figure out an answer for that. So that's an initiative that I'm really going to start working towards more. It's on my bucket list for the next, especially 2024. It's like my big, I really want to work on that in 2024, giving back to the community, figuring out how the company can give back to the community, so that it's me, but it's also the company has responsibility as well, I feel. And so those are the type of things that I'm trying to.
So I think this is a good place, because you never know who's listening, who might have some sustainability solutions for you. So tell us about your product. I realized we never mentioned what the business is, what the business does. So maybe, dear listeners, if you have resources for support, trade, or partnership in sustainability initiatives, I got your girl.
Oh, that'd be great. Yeah. So it's taken me a very long time to figure out how to say this, because, I've been in the business my whole life. So we die cut pressure sensitive materials such as Velcro or foams and tapes. And so we cut big rolls of tape into pieces that people use in other things. So we don't really make anything. We make parts for other people. The biggest issue as far as sustainability is concerned is, first of all, these products aren't usually recyclable. And once we add adhesive or the sticky stuff to it, then it's really not recyclable. So I actually took a sustainability class through NYU and did a project. And so had, a far-fetched idea, which I don't even know if it's possible, but I really would like to. Reducing, I don't think, is a huge issue for us, because we do really well on yielding on our material. The reusing part is the part I really want to try to figure out. What can we do with those scraps? I'm not the only one. I mean, there's so I'm trying to find, I'm actually going to a conference soon. I'm trying to see if I can find some other people and try to start this initiative, because even if they're competitors, we all have the same problem going to some of the manufacturers. So that's what I'm trying to find out, what to do with the stuff that does end up in the dumpster, which then ends up probably in a landfill. It can't even really it can't be recycled. And so we have, or can I find a way to recycle it or do something with it? So those are the things I'm trying to think through. Yeah. So I'm definitely, anybody that's into sustainability, that's interested in a project that wants to, brain trust it, that would be great. I'm actually thinking about even going to some of the universities and asking them to do it as a project with some of maybe
That'd be really cool. And that's where we have to get creative, right? Creativity over capital, and say, okay, I like how you shifted it from it can't be recycled to, well, we don't know how to do it yet, or however the language was. Because it's so easy to just look at our situation and be like, it is what it is. I can't do anything about it. But the reality is a small 1% increase over time yields a tremendous return at the end of the year. I mean, I'm not great with math. I forget the numbers, but it's an absurd amount of growth. So it's looking at the things that make us curious, the things that frustrate us, the things that make our hearts heavy, and saying, but what if there was a slightly different way?
Right.
And
that's something that's also hard for me. Like I said, I never really wanted to go into this business. And when I look at, where we are, and because of this business, and I think then I look in the dumpster, it does, like you said, it makes you sad. Like sometimes it does. I mean, I know there are people in the world that are doing much worse polluting than we are. Like I said, considering the volume that we go through, we yield really well. So I appreciate that. But yeah, it's thinking outside, the box, and making small changes, like just starting recycling, making sure that our cardboard is actually being recycled, starting there and taking little steps forward, I think are important. So that's one of the initiatives I'm trying to do at work. And yeah, so.
That's great. I'll also have to connect you with my sister. She led our sustainability initiative at
Oh
Fimble.
yeah.
And now we have solar panels and we have recycled office paper and we
Oh,
have,
great.
more
Yes.
concise delivery routes, like just the little things, like we can't right now pick up and move the building and start it with high energy efficiency stuff, right? But we can
Exactly.
do something with what we have. We can make better decisions with what we have, which has been a huge part of your career trajectory, right? Is getting the operation, whether it was your body, your mind, your business, in the right way to yield the outcomes that you want. So I'll ask about something that maybe it was a glitch for you or not. I'm not sure, but I know when I entered the women in manufacturing industry, it was a little bit of a thing, right? Like it just, I walked into every room was a room full of men. Every room, especially with our legacy in the garage door industry, we're not alone. There are many other three generation four, two and three, four. So it's this respectfully because it's a beautiful, powerful network, but a good old boy network, right? That kind of thing. And I had to learn to kind of stand up a little bit differently and to not feel intimidated in that space because I was a bit of an outlier. How has that experience been for you being a woman in manufacturing business?
Well, I haven't had as much outside contact just because the majority of the stuff I'm doing is internal.
Mm-hmm.
And I haven't yet started. That's why I'm talking to people. That's why I'm
Mm-hmm.
getting out there to do that. We're actually going to a conference next week. That's gastic fabricators. So it's people that make the materials. And they actually are starting this year, a woman in manufacturing, group. So
Yeah.
I'm definitely going to go to that and figure that and be there and empower.
Yeah, I mean, and that's a good point because I'm talking about 2012, right? And I will say that over the 10 years that I was active in operations, it changed. I remember going to
Yeah.
trade shows towards the end, and it was tons of women,
Yeah.
and there is a shift to that. So I appreciate. See, I got into my old way of thinking, and I made an
Yeah.
assumption that it was still the
Yeah. I
same way.
mean,
So I appreciate that.
I was really excited to see that. I wasn't even sure if I was going to go. And then I'm like, you know what? Yeah, I'm going to go and I'm going to be in the ground floor on that so that I can see what's going on. Getting more women involved in manufacturing because we just think a different way, I think.
Mhm.
And
I think you're right.
and so I'm excited about that to see that. But you're right, there's a lot of I think manufacturing when you're smaller, I mean the big, huge manufacturers, of course, they're much more up to date, modern, that type of stuff.
Mhm.
But when you're a smaller manufacturer, it is like family owned. How do we get, ahead of ourselves type of thing? And it's a lot more. I've been thinking about it a lot lately, and it's a lot more difficult because you got to get somebody in there as the catalyst to be like, we have to change, or else you're just going to keep doing it the same way. And like we said in the beginning, change isn't easy. So
Mhm.
um, I think it's the same in manufacturing for women. If
Mhm.
women want to be involved, it's
Go
people
for
are
it.
gonna have to accept it. Yeah,
Yep.
you know.
Well,
Um,
so you and I both agreed that going into the family business was not in the deck of cards when we were kids or in our younger adult years. When you were a young girl, what did you want to be? What was the thing that you were most curious about?
oh, I wanted to be a movie producer.
Tell me about that. Okay, so what kind of movies? Was there a movie that you saw that was like, oh, I have to
No,
do that? Tell us about that.
so I'll tell you, I realized this recently is that the reason that in whole movie business, because you have to remember it was a lot different when I was younger than it is
Mhm.
now, right? It wasn't like you just picked up your camera, made a show, and sent
Mhm.
it to
It
Netflix.
was a huge production.
It was a huge deal. There were five studios. It was very not women friendly.
Mhm.
And so, but when I was younger, I never really wanted to be on screen. So I think that's where, I mean, the producer thing came along later. I just wanted to be involved in it. And I think it was because I wanted to make a difference. Um, I just remember when I was younger, and I'll tell me it, that I looked at Madonna one day and she was doing some activist thing. And I was like, you know what? She has a voice. Because of her fame, she has a voice. And I think that's where I always kind of wanted to be, have a voice. So yeah, I went into business. It was film, and business is just, I'm less creative, more business side of it. So the production part just took place of it. I mean, I made it all the way to LA, and I was working at a small independent company, and I decided to go to grad school so that I would be more able to, walk somebody's dog, because that back then, the more letters you had, the better. And then I went back to school I came back to school to go to school on the East Coast, and ended up getting back together with my boyfriend who was working at my father's business. So I ended up back on the East Coast. But
okay. So a letter comes in the mail tomorrow that says, we have decided, Lisa, that your concept for a movie is about to go in production here in LA. Please fly out and let's do it. What would the movie be? If you could create any movie right now, whether it was for an activist mindset or education or whatever, or entertainment.
Yeah.
What would your movie be?
I still think it would be entertainment, because that's what my daughter's actually wanting to do documentaries, but think I'm still more entertainment. But because I think through stories you can get across certain things.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's probably where it would be. I haven't really thought. That's a really good question. I have to think about that one. I don't know what the theme of it would be. I mean, in the past, I've had like books in my head, fiction books, novels.
Mm-hmm.
I've had ideas for it, but I don't know what it would be. I'd have to. That's a good,
Definitely
really
something to think about. I'm a big fan in today's world of, when I look at so many people, they're doing the job, whether it's the 9 to 5 or the flexible job, because they think they should, right? They think that's what's next. They think that's what's available. And whatever those beliefs are, it keeps us in that space. And I love to ask people, and this is something that, and we just recognized that we both knew Tara Gilvar, who was episode 25 on my podcast, and the founder of Big. We didn't even know we had that connection before we started. She asked the question a lot of, who were you, who are you, and who do you want to be? And then what stands in the way of that? And it very much aligns with a lot of the work that I do, because I'm always like, well, what did you want to be when you were 5? What do you want to be today? Or you don't know? Okay, well, what do you want to be in 10 years? Where's the gap? Right. And that's where we start looking at, okay, well, if you wanted to be a movie producer or a movie fill in the blank when you were a kid, and here you are, and in the future, we haven't filled that blank in, but what's the gap? And so off the cuff, and I think I've mentioned this once before, I would say, let's extend that idea of interview or recording dad, just in his, you built this machine, you know how to tweak it, to a bit more of that story, right? Let's really capture that story and interweave it into the operations that are created, because that builds the legacy, and that makes you, my dear, a movie producer.
Yes, no, it is true. But I think, interesting enough, what I've done is sort of take a step back as to why, what was it? And that's where when I give the idea about, when I talk about Madonna being able to, is I've really had trouble with the vehicle. But if you think about, and that's where I keep getting hung up, like, well, do I want to do this? But really, in the end, I just want to make an impact, and I want to be in charge, and I want people to, listen. Mm-hmm. And so I think the vehicle doesn't matter as much. Mm-hmm. So
it's yes, so true. That's such a good point.
Yeah. Yes, I wanted to be a movie producer. And yes, I wanted to, do all this other stuff. But in the end, what I really wanted to be like was,
impact,
boss bitch type of thing. I really that's what I want. And so how can I do that given what I have? Mm-hmm. Because, I'm not going, but I've always said I should have been
secret sauce. What can I do with what I want, given what I have?
Exactly. And that's where it comes out, like, I have this business, like I've been handed this business. Mm-hmm. So let's figure that out, and let's see if we can make something with that. And with that, we can, that business can do all these wonderful, great things, right? And give back and, help support people and that type of stuff, which we all also do, because like I said, most of our employees have been with us a really long time. They're part of our family. We've supported them. It's, that's all really important. So
it is. And to go back to the beginning, it's the most important thing to keep that culture when you go from a family business to a professionally run family business. It's the most important and the most challenging, right? Because yes, we want to say, okay, well, you need extra time, go take it, go do your thing. But we also have to build in a policy so it's equitable and aligns with our HR standards across the board. But we still want to be this nice, generous group, right? What do you think it is about your culture that really makes people want to be there?
It's a really good question, because
It's an important one, right? Because that's the thing to hold on to.
I think consistency is something that that make people stay. I think they find that they're good at something I think that that's part of it. We treat our employees well and they're good at their jobs, and why change is kind of, so I think it has as much to do with the personalities of the people that we hire, as well as the environment and the culture.
That's great. That's great. And it's these are the questions that are important and critical to reflect upon, right? Because as any manager, as you're moving forward, right? Who are the people? Why do they show up? What drives them? Because let's face it, they could all just not come in, right? No one's making them come in. They're choosing to, right? So how do we help people choose it? And where for us, where we couldn't increase pay at the time, we couldn't just give away the bank, we're coming through COVID and all the crazy things. So we just created incentives, right? We created more community. We created more access to benefits. We just highlighted all the things about our culture that they already loved that they kind of forgot about, right?
And big one. Yeah. Cause I didn't realize until I started doing more of the HR stuff, how our benefits were. Right. And I think that, if you've been working at a company for 15, 20 years, you don't realize what you're getting, you don't realize it. So we've been trying to do that as well. Letting people know. I think they also like, working together. They're like a family as well. So
exactly.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
Exactly. Well, I think that the way that you approach the dynamic nature of your life and your company and all of the important relationships are setting you up for all kinds of interesting futures, right? And I think it will be vast and dynamic. But if people are interested right now in talking with you further about sustainability or family dynamics and different, business arrangements, how can people find you?
Well, they can email me at lisa.s@Gleicher, which is GLEICHER.com.
And I'll throw it in the show notes too.
Yeah. And I can also put my LinkedIn. You can put my LinkedIn link in show notes, and that's another way they can get in touch with me.
Perfect. And as we leave, one of my favorite questions, I'm a total Tim Ferriss podcast geek, and he asks the question, if you could have a billboard that would say anything to the world, not advertising, we're going to assume that all of your products are fully advertised. A billboard that reaches thousands, millions of people, what would you say on it today?
Personal or business-wise?
Up to you.
Be kind to yourself and others.
Perfect. And I think that that's personal and business, right? If we aren't running our businesses in a way that's kind and, fair to us, our people, stakeholders, and the environment, what are we doing?
Right? And personally too. I mean, people just need, I think people just need to be kind and think about that. So
keep it simple, right?
Yes.
Well, so I really appreciate your time. It was a delightful conversation, and it brought up a lot of parts of my journey that I maybe haven't thought about in a while. So I appreciate my own little trip down memory lane. And we are very excited to watch all the things that you have coming up and to see you shining in your space wherever you take it. And to everyone, wherever you are and whatever you're doing, I hope you make it a great day. Thanks so much.